So hi, you're with Chris from Lighthouse Leadership. It's great to be with you. In this video, I want to share with you some of the ideas that I use in camping environments and in leadership environments for setting up temporary community. And some of the foundations that we set up here are really important. So I want to unpack some of those for you quite briefly to hopefully that can inform you in some of your practice and add to what you do. So I just want to let you know that what we're really interested in here is growing the heart of leaders. And I'm going to share a few things soon about some of the biblical story and narrative behind why the heart. But our goal really is to start answering this question: how do we set up kingdom on earth? And so the first thing that we want to do about that is, like, when we start setting up a temporary community, we want to speak about the key question is, how are we going to treat each other? And so just very briefly, we've got two levels of leadership happening all of the time. We've got the level at the top, which is like what we're doing, the goals that we're trying to achieve. And so if you're an off-site camping experience, then it's all of your days out in the wilderness. If you're an on-site camp experience, it's all of the activities that you do. That's the activities, that's the goals that you've got. Now underneath that, this is where the personal leadership happens. So in this layer underneath, we want to set this part up, because this is the part that in general culture we really don't talk about. But this is the part that make or breaks how well we achieve our goals. And the key to this foundational level of leadership is asking the question, how are we going to treat each other? So if we have an understanding of what it means to set up kingdom on earth, we'll understand that how you and I treat each other, how we as a group treat each other, is paramount. And so my suggestion is you want to pick about 5 to 6 values. And there's lots of different ways that you can do this. But all of the values need to have probably about 5 things that you need to have mixed across these values. And I'll let you choose the values. I actually let the kids, if I have leaders that are grade 10 and above, they're the ones that get to choose the values that we use. And my role as a facilitator is simply to ask them, how are we going to treat each other? You could then break them up into small groups. You could have a large group conversation. You can collect all of the information, talk it through together, and come up with your top 5, 6, at the most 7, 5 or 6 is good, values of how we're going to treat each other. Now, it's really important that these values are actions. Values are things that we do. So you want stuff like a standard one that would come out would be respect. We're going to respect everybody. Respect's good. People know what respect means. They know that it's a behavior. They know when it's happening, and they know when it's not happening. So that's a great example. Another one that might come out might be encouraging other people. This is one that I'd actually suggest that you have. But encouragement is the thing that you're doing. Sometimes students and kids at camp will pick values that aren't really something that you do. Steer away from these. They actually make it really hard in the practical to work it out. But these are the 5 things that you must have. So first, you must have a value or a couple of values that speak about trust and safety. It might be, let's trust each other, or let's be trustworthy. It might have something to do with our level of commitment. It might have something to do with the way that we communicate. But whatever it is, it has to be about setting up trust and safety. The second thing that you need to have is something about encouragement. One of the cultures that we inherently have as humans is a get culture versus a give culture. And so to start setting up the culture in our camp, in our temporary community of giving, one thing that we want to start with is the giving of encouragement. So whether you take the word encouragement or something else that's a little bit different in terms of the word selection, you need to have something in there where kids have to give, and they have to give something that will grow other people. That's my second tip. My third tip is that you have to have something in there about tolerance and acceptance. It might be, let's do our best to put up with everybody. Let's encourage people, but let's be really patient with everybody. Something about tolerating and accepting everybody. Something to do with inclusion. This is really important to have because we want to all be treated with acceptance and inclusion. My fourth tip to you is that there's something in there, a value that speaks about open and honest feedback. If you're in a group and you're going through the stages of development as a group, and let's say that you're doing a week program and you're out for a week, by about day 2, day 3, then the friction's really starting to start. And if you've run those kind of programs, you know what I mean, because the group is starting to go into the storming phase. Now, it's really important that way back at the start, which is where we do this code of honor, that we set up something about open and honest feedback. We need to be able to tell people, hey, what you're doing is not okay. And we need to be able to receive ourselves, hey, what you're doing needs to change because it's affecting the way we work. So something about open and honest feedback. My fifth tip is that you must have something in there that has to do with fun. Nobody wants to join in anything if there's no fun. So they're my 5 tips. Have something to do with trust and safety, encouragement, tolerance and acceptance or inclusion, something to do with open and honest feedback, and you need to have something in there to do with fun. Now, how you actually present those or how you keep those up to you. I sometimes put them on the fingers and I say, hey, what do these fingers mean? And that's a fun way to do it. Sometimes I get a beach ball and we write them on a beach ball, and then we carry the beach ball around with us for all of the activities. And the way we treat the beach ball is the way we would treat other people. So if we bust the beach ball, then we've busted our relationship. And so then we need to get a new one, or we need to repair it, and we need to blow it up again so that it can work again. So all of those kind of analogies can be really powerful. A couple of other tips about setting up your code of honor. It needs to be done as close to the start of the experience as possible. If you wait even an hour, and at the worst, a day into the experience, already people have started to develop a culture for how they're going to treat each other. And usually it's a default setting. So you actually need to start setting the highest, an expectation of the highest level of behavior. I want the best out of you from the very start. That's why it's so important to set our code of honor right at the start. During the forming and the storming stages of group development, this code of honor needs to be referred to often. So for me, if I'm running an activity, say it's a leadership camp and kids have arrived in the morning, we've set our code of honor, and during the day we've got 4 different experiences, we will at least reflect on the code of honor at each 4 of those experiences. So every time we do an activity and we do a debrief, we ask, how are we going with our code of honor? If you get past the storming stage, and the storming stage is going to be really important to focus on the code of honor, and groups start to norm, they actually start to roll quite well, and let's say you've got a multi-day experience, 10 days, 12 days, 20 days. These guys are starting to get used to how we treat each other. It's starting to become a little bit more internalized, a bit more automatic. It might be okay to check in with the code of honor, say, at the end of each day. How did we go today? But for the first 2 stages of group development, forming and storming, it's really important that we check in with the code of honor repetitiously throughout the day, at least 4 times a day, at least after each experience. Okay, so we've set up a code of honor. We know that we need to do it right at the start. We know we need to check in with it all of the time. What happens if something goes wrong? This is something we need to discuss right back at the start. And we'll say to the students, to the leaders, so what happens if somebody doesn't follow the code of honor? And we talk about the difference between rules and honor. So honor is about lifting somebody up into a place where they're like even above respect. Yeah? And rules is about if you break the rule, there's a consequence, and the consequence is punishment. So in setting up a code of honor, we want to avoid all punishment because punishment sets up a fear culture. But we're trying to set up an inclusion culture. So in doing that, we want to avoid punishment, but we do want to increase the responsibility. That's the trade-off. Less punishment, more responsibility. So to increase more responsibility, we're going to use our open and honest feedback, we're going to use our inclusion, we're going to use our trust, we're going to use these values, and if something goes wrong with them, we want to give people the freedom to be able to tell each other, hey, this didn't really work very well, or you actually broke the code of honor, or I actually don't feel good about what happens. And we want to increase the opportunity for people to share what they really think. Most people won't share that. Most people have grown up in families where it's not okay to share these kind of things, so this takes practice and this takes time, and it needs invitation. You need to invite people to come into the space where they can share what really happened and point out to somebody else, hey, that didn't really work well for us. And then we just go through a really simple grace-based procedure. We give the person an opportunity after the confrontation to apologize, and we forgive. And then we give another opportunity and we move on. That way we're avoiding the punishing, but we're continuing to maintain the connection amongst our group. A lot of people find apologizing and forgiving a real challenge. The good thing about that is it starts to become some of the encouragement to maintain our culture of honor. It's not a punishment having to apologize, but it is part of your responsibility. And so as we make that transition and we build this up, then we get much more effective outcomes because our culture is much more inclusive. So as you can see, this culture of honor ends up becoming a really foundational tool for everything that we do. So as we work from talking about how do we actually make kingdom on earth, now we actually get all hands in. Everybody's making the heart of the team. Everybody's contributing, because what we've done is we've spoken about not only the goals that we're trying to achieve, but underneath that we've set this code of honor about how we're going to treat each other. And so I hope that you can try some of those suggestions. I hope it goes well for you. And yeah, we hopefully will be able to really tap in to developing great temporary community by supporting a code of honor with your group.